Let's open our Bibles tonight to the book of Psalms 91. The name of the message is Under the Shadow of the Almighty. But you could also call it Evidence of Our Love for Christ. Evidence of our love for Christ. This morning I was talking about the woman who, Mary Magdalene, who took the alabaster box and broke it open and poured it over Jesus, weeping, stood behind him, fell to her knees and began to wipe his feet with her hair. Now, to Simon, who was a Pharisee and who had been a leper, it was embarrassing for him. But Jesus said, "They that are forgiven of much loveth much." So when Jesus saw what Mary did to Jesus, which was he was seeing the way things the Father sees, it was love. That was love speaking. That was love acting. That was love operating. That was devotion. That was gratitude. That was thankfulness. That was praise. That was worship to Jesus, which means that it was to the Father. To Simon, it was foolishness. But now, how did Jesus see Simon then? I mean, there are so many different directions we could go in this thing, but how did the Father see Simon? He's seen that Simon had a problem. Simon didn't love Jesus. He didn't appreciate him. He wasn't thankful. Now, Simon, who was a Pharisee, but also he was the one in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 14. He had been a leopard, which was a declaration of death. And yet, when Jesus came to his house, he didn't wash his feet. He didn't anoint him with oil. You know, that scares me, being cold and hard-hearted. You know, it's to the Father and to Jesus, the woman was love. But Simon was, "Come to my house," as if he was doing Jesus a favor. So, let me say it this way, love is evident. What you love will be evident. What I really love, everybody will see. What I really love. And matter of fact, Jesus, he kept telling Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he said, where your treasure is, where you invest your money, where you invest your time, where you invest your life, that's where your treasure's at. And Jesus invested his life into the will of the Father. And when Jesus said to the disciples, "Come and follow me," guess what they did? They followed him. So you can see in Mary, you can see love is manifested, right? Joy. You know, we talk about the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, which actually in the Greek is faithfulness, commitment, meekness, right, and self-control. That's the evidence of the life of God in us. That's the evidence of Jesus in us. Now, Jesus was 100%. I said here a couple of weeks ago, 1,000%. Stephen said, "There ain't no such thing, Dad." I said, "Well, he's 1,000%. 1,000% love, joy, peace. The greatest deception there is, which concerns me, is self-deception. I can deceive myself into thinking I'm right with God. How do I know if I'm right with God? I got to look at where I'm pouring my life, pouring my time, pouring my energy, pouring whatever, how I respond. Is love manifested in me? Do I have joy unspeakable and full of glory? Am I operating in peace that passes understanding? And is the goodness of God being manifested in me? Gentleness. Can you move? You couldn't move Jesus out of gentleness. You couldn't move him out of it. You couldn't get him out of not being gentle. You couldn't get him out of not being good. You couldn't get him out of not having hope. You couldn't get him out of love. You could not move Jesus out of love. He was there. And if you look at his disciples, Stephen, I mean, they're stoning him. Can't get him to stop loving. Amen. See, if I'm really rooted and grounded in Christ, Mary says, rooted and grounded in love, then, the height, the depth, the width, the length, the love of Christ, the fullness of God, I mean, you can't get me out of being faithful to God. Weather ain't going to stop me. Financial difficulties ain't going to stop me. Hardship ain't going to stop me. People's opinions ain't going to stop me. What you do to me shouldn't stop me if I'm really grounded. If the fruit of the Spirit is really in me being developed and matured, you shouldn't be able to self-control. I think that's one of the difficult ones in the day and age we live in is temperance. Crucify the flesh, mortify the flesh. Jesus said perilous days, we're in them. But that woman, wow, you could see the love of God manifested in her. Love for Jesus, passion for Jesus, longing for Jesus. I'm talking about in a godly way. I mean, faithful, committed to Jesus. I mean, she was down there before the sun rose on the resurrection morning, and when the body wasn't there, she runs back to Peter and John and the disciples. They've taken my Lord. They've taken his body, and they run down there, and of course he's been raised from the dead. And then as they're going back to tell the disciples, yep, somebody took the body of Jesus, here comes Mary again. And let me tell you something, I've been in Israel. That was not easy walking. Up and down those mountains, it's a rough land. And she went back down to the tomb. I've been to the tomb of Jesus. And she went back down there. It's not very far from Golgotha. And she went back down there, and she's so in love with Jesus. She's weeping. She's weeping. Think about someone that you love more than anything else in all the world. Not only are they dead, but their body's gone. And she couldn't see. And all of a sudden, Jesus is standing there, but she's weeping so hard she can't see who it is. And she thinks he's a gardener. And said, where have you taken my Lord? And he says, Mary. And she looks up, and she finally sees him. What does she do? Without thinking, say without thinking. See, that's how we ought to be with our worship. That's how we ought to be with our giving. That's how we ought to be with our prayer time. That's how we ought to be with our witnessing, without thinking. Not leaning to the understanding of your mind. Trusting the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he'll direct your paths. What a wonderful life. What a mysterious life. Them that are born again are like the wind. From whence they come and whence they go, no man knows. See, you can understand the world. The world is easy to understand. You know, money, security, self. But a believer who's just swallowed up in Jesus, they're a mystery. You can't really understand them. You know, I was thinking of Smith Wigglesworth after he really, really fell in love with Jesus. He was a mysterious man. Nobody could understand what made him tick. Think about it. After I got born again, my buddies couldn't understand what made me tick. You know, it used to be the drugs, the violence, the sex, the immorality, the perversion, the tobacco, the alcohol, the drugs, the rock music, but not no more, man. New creature, new creation, brand new man in Jesus. You know, I told you a couple of weeks ago, a guy actually came to me and said, I want to buy your place. Well, I said, it's not my place. Well, I want to buy it. Give me your price. I said, it's not for sale. He said, no, everything's for sale. He said, what do you want for this place? I said, I started laughing. I turned my back on him. I said, it's not for sale. I said, you can't buy me. Why? Because it's not about money. It's not about money. It's about Jesus. It's about loving God. It's the fruits of the Spirit. So you could see that Mary Magdalene, she really, really loved Jesus. She didn't have to say, I love Jesus better than ice cream, and ice cream's very good, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. You didn't have to. No. I saw a guy one time, he was on TV, and he was going on and on and on how he loved Jesus. That don't impress me, saying, I love Jesus, so what? I want to see it. How are you going to see it? You're going to see it in your attitudes, your actions, your words, your deeds. What's important to you? What is salvation? This morning, Sister Glenda came to me, and she brought her son, and she said, Pastor Mike, my son needs some devils cast out of him. I looked, I said, no, he ain't got devils. I said, he may be tormented, but he ain't got devils. Well, will you pray with him for me? I said, if he wants me to pray. So I went back there, and he's a nice young gentleman, you know, kind of rugged looking, and I looked at him, and And I'm sure people have convinced him he's got demons. And I said, brother, you ain't got devils. He kind of looked at me like I don't. I said, no, you're tormented. I said, here's your problem. I said, let me tell you what your problem is. I said, you have to give Jesus your heart. And the mother said, well, didn't you pray? You prayed a prayer of salvation when you were young. I said, that's the problem with the church today. People think salvation is praying a prayer. It's not praying a prayer. I said, it's giving Jesus your heart. And you know what? I said to him, I said, Chip, you might have to do that 1,000 times a day. Here's my heart, Lord, it's yours. Here's my heart, Lord. It's not for the world. It don't belong to the devil. It don't belong to mammon. It don't belong to a person, a natural person. It doesn't belong. I love my kids and I love my wife, but really my heart belongs to Jesus. I said, Chip, if you'll just give your heart to, well, of course, Mom wanted him to do it right then and there. He wasn't ready. I said, I said, this is not something you just do once in public. I said, you got to do it. How many of you had to give your heart to Jesus more than once? Over and over and over. Why? Because the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. He wants to steal my heart away from God. The cares of life, deceitfulness of riches, lust of other things entering in. So what happens when you really give your heart to Jesus wholeheartedly, not half-heartedly, not lukewarm? You enter into a new realm, a new world. And I think Psalms 91, if you have your Bible, you can read that for a little bit tonight. I'm going to talk about this. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. Who is he that dwelleth? Under the shadow of the Almighty, right? In the pavilion of the Lord. And hide yourself in the cleft of the rock, like a little chick under the wings of a bird. He that dwelleth, he dwells, he lives there in the secret place of the Most. Why is it a secret place? Because the world doesn't understand this secret place. You can be out in public and yet you're hiding under the shadow of the Almighty. You're putting your trust and your confidence in Him. You're putting your love in Him. You trust Him, you depend on Him, you lean on Him. You're abiding in Him and His Word abides in you. And you shall ask what you will. How many times do we get out from underneath the wings of the Almighty? True story, there was a farmer who had a fire that broke out on his farm. And in his old barn, and the hay, you know how old dry hay is, it just took off. So after the barn burned down, he had an old hen with a bunch of chicks out there, but he didn't see where they went. He was walking through the barnyard, and he walked over to the barn, and he kicked a stump, and here it was that big old hen. Kicked the stump of the hen, and it flipped over. And underneath that hen came about a half a dozen little chicks running. See, them little chicks were underneath Mama when the fire came. And so when the fire came and went, guess what? They didn't get burnt because they were under the wings of their mother. And that's where we need to find ourselves. We need to be under the wings of God, under the shadow of the Almighty. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of who? Not just anybody. Not Prudential. Right? Under not Farmers Insurance or Geico. You can't make a Geico commercial with this. Under the wings of the Almighty, Almighty God, the I am that I am. I will say, now listen, here's the heart, here's the heart, here's the heart of this person who wrote this. I will say of the Lord, He's my refuge and my fortress. Oh, my protection, my refuge, my fortress. I'm living in a wicked world, and the fiery darts of the wicked are coming every which direction, but I'm dwelling under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge, my fortress. He is my insurance. He's my trust. He's my confidence. My God, in Him will I trust. My God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver me from the snare of the fowler, the snare, the trap, the entrapment of the devil, the deceptions, the lies. He will, because I've made Him my trust. And from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings. Well, how many know that the wing is like your arm? Under the arms next to your heart. For in words He's saying, I'm gonna stay close to the heart of God. You know, we've been talking the last couple of weeks about having a heart after God. A heart after God, not a heart for the world, not a heart for pleasures. And I know the devil's trying to entice us. I know our flesh needs to be crucified every day. I have to die daily. My flesh, I know there's some teach you that when you got born again, your flesh died, and they've been deceived. Your flesh did not die. It's still alive. It's still kicking into the day you get out of here. That's why Paul said, unless I preach to others and I myself become a castaway, I beat my body black and blue. Hey, it's not talking about it in a physical sense, but you got to jerk the slack out of yourself. You know, a lot of people want to jerk the slack out of other people. No, jerk the slack out of you. I know one day I was in prayer years ago, and the Lord said this to me, because I was trying to make my wife live right and do right and spend right. You know, and the Lord said, he said, son, leave her alone. He said, pull the beam out of your own eye, and then you can help her with her sliver. Isn't that what Jesus said? The minute you got your focus on someone else, I ain't got my focus. I got my focus on Jesus, and I'm dealing with Mike Yeager. You know, I mean, you know, it's this. My daughter wrote a tremendous song. It said, the flesh must die, the flesh must die. And then she'd have to sing it for you, but all of a sudden the flesh comes right back out of the tomb. The flesh tries to keep on rising up like a zombie, trying to come back up. No, put it back under your feet. Amen? You know, we always talk about putting the devil under our feet. We got to put the flesh under our feet. Attitudes, thoughts, desires, wrong outlook, right? You know, we're going to get into a little bit of nitty-gritty tonight. Is that all righty? Is that already righty, Rooter? We're going to take the Rooter to you tonight. How's that? We'll deal with some slop, let it come to the surface and scoop it off the top. Some scum. You know, I ain't got no scum in me. Well, you've already deceived. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth, here we go. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. The truth, it is written, weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God. I'd have lost my mind without the truth, without the shield, without the buckler many, 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 many years ago. I would have lost my mind. And even with the truth, I felt like have you ever felt like since you've been saved, you're losing your mind? You know what I do when I feel like I'm losing my mind? The truth. What does God say? Who cares what people say? Who cares what the devil says? Who cares what the circumstances say? What does God say? What does God say? What does God say? I know this sounds weird and strange, but I have literally I've gone out of the way to try to put myself in predicaments where I knew I was in the will of God, where if God didn't come through for me, I was a goner. Why? Because, you know, people don't understand this, do you know when trees get strong? In droughts. You know why? Because in a time of drought, a tree, if it's just raining all the time, like right now, if it would do this for the next couple of years, like today, just rain, and the wind would come through, you'd see a lot of trees down. But times of drought, you know what happens? The roots got to go deep to seek the water. You got to go deep to seek the water. Sometimes you got to go deep in God. God, I've walked the floor of this facility many times in the last 30, built this building in 1986. I've walked the floor many times saying, God, I need you. God, I'm not going to make it without you. God, you got to intercede. You got to help me. Lord, help me. If I was you and you were me and I could help you like you can help me, I would help you, Lord. Did you get that? I would help you. Help me now, Jesus. Help me. Because no man's the answer. No man's the answer. Thou shalt not be afraid. Say, I'll not be afraid. I'll not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. In those days, today we would say bullets, bombs, grenades, snipers. I'll not be afraid of snipers. I'll not be afraid of people with guns. I'll not be afraid. We'll talk about some of my experiences tonight in my one book, How God Still Protects. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, as diseases and plagues, and for the destruction that wasted at noonday. Listen, verse 7. Listen how confident this man is. He's so confident. He's so bold. You might think it was arrogance, but remember now, his confidence is not in himself. It's in God. It's in God. My confidence in God, Paul said, we are those who have no confidence in the flesh. Our confidence is in God. He's going to see me through this mess. You know, a lot of times our mess is caused by our own stupidity, isn't it? But doesn't he still help us? Has God ever helped you in your own stupidity? Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side. How many? 1,000 will fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it's not going to come nigh thee. Now, we're talking about somebody who's abiding under the shadow of the Almighty. He's not just big words, just talk. He's doing it. See, that's where I want to live. Man, I want to live in that place. I've lived in there many times. But I want to live under the shadow of the Almighty. Draw nigh to God, and he'll draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, you double-minded. Believe filthy in the morning, weep, let your laughter be turned to mourning, joy in the heaviness. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and he'll lift you up. Oh, I love the word. I love the truth. It's my shield and my buckler. It's my sanity. It's my wisdom. It's by the word that I'm sanctified. I'm set apart. I'm separated. It's the word of God in your heart that will make, it's not just Jesus in your heart, because he is the word. It's the word in your heart that will make you different than the world. You'll talk different, you'll think different, you'll live different, you'll move different. You won't be like the world. Who wants to be like the world? The world is a dime. You know, they say a dime a dozen is probably a penny a dozen now, you know. I mean, the world's messed up, people. All you got to do, even if you turn on a conservative news channels, they're all messed up. Their focus is, and we don't mean to do it this way, but think about this. Even the conservatives, even godly people, their focus is always on the negative, always on the negative, always on the negative. Why isn't it on the positive? His name is Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. The King of Kings is he. The Lord of Lords, supreme throughout eternity. You can buy my album after we get. I want to talk about Jesus. He's it. He's the answer. Woo, he's the solution. Wow. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. Why? Don't have to be afraid of cancer. Don't have to be afraid of disease. Don't have to be afraid of death. Don't have to be afraid of the world. Can't move me with fear. I don't have a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. Why? Because I've made the Lord my trust. He's my shield, my buckler, my fortress. Listen, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. Your habitation. How many live in a house? How many live in a car? Sometimes, right? But he's your habitation, right? Now, don't lift your hands. How many live in the internet? A lot of people live in the internet now. That's where they're living. And that's why they're so miserable. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. I remember back in about 2014, my wife and I, we were broadcasting by satellite. We had our own network. We still do, but now it's all by Roku box and modern technology. And we went up to Kathy's mom's house in Cassville. You've been up there, Nancy. And we installed a small dish network where she could watch us, plus also she could watch other Christian programming. Kathy and I were coming home, and we're in the will of God now. We're abiding under the shadow of the Almighty. Everything we're doing is we're really striving to live for Jesus. Now, realize I'm not striving to live for Jesus because I'm afraid if I don't, the devil's going to get me. I love him. And so we're coming home, and I come around a sharp curve on 522. I could take you there. And as I did, there was this big old logging truck coming around faster than what he should have. He had a full load of logs, and because he was going so fast, I saw something that was swinging out of the back of his big logging truck. I am convinced to this day it was a big old chain that had come loose, and probably had a big old buckle on it, and there was no way I could avoid it. And as he came around that corner, whatever it was, headed right for our windshield in Kathy's little Prius. And right before it hit us, there was a big, like a white cloud. It looked like actually feathers that appeared on our windshield. I am not lying. Kathy saw it coming, and so it wouldn't have helped her. She put her arms up like this to protect herself, right? And then whatever it was hit us. And the whole car boomed. And the whole car shook. I'm not exaggerating. It was boom! And the whole car felt like it was going to flip over. Just, and then it was over. And it was a white cloud, a white feathers, just a glory cloud. And then it disappeared. It was so hard and so strong that I pulled off the road, and Kathy and I looked at each other, and we're sitting there speechless. What was that? What was that? I said, baby doll. I said, that was a logging chain headed for us. I said, an angel of the Lord got between us and a logging chain. That's what happened. I said, it would have taken off the top of our car, and we would have been in a newspaper. Pastor and wife cut in half, closed casket funerals, logging chain from logging truck, cut him in half. Pulled off the road, we're sitting there. I got out and I began to look over that car as strong as it hit. I mean, the whole car shook. You can ask my wife. Not one mark on our car. The angels of the Lord will be given charge over them. They'll not dash one foot against a rock. Supernatural protection. But you know what? How many other Christians would have been dead in that accident? I'm not saying they want to go to heaven. I'm not saying that. But what was it? We were abiding under the shadow of the Almighty. Up against the heart of Jesus. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and the adder. The young lion and the dragon shall thou trample under feet. Why? Listen to this, verse 14. Wow. Say wow. Listen to verse 14. Because he has set his love upon me. What do you mean, set his love upon? He set his heart. For years I had a target up here. You could, like an arrow, you could aim for the heart of it. And it's this: love God with all of your heart, soul, mind, strength, and being. That's where you set your heart. Beloved, that's the compass of your life. That's the GPS. I'm going to set and every time you allow the world, the flesh of the devil to get your compass messed up, because there's things that will upset the magnetic flow of a compass. You got to get true north. If you have another magnet next to it or something, you got to move it away, and you got to get your focus on Jesus no matter where you're at. No matter where you're at in your walk with God, and geographically, emotionally, physically, financially, get your eyes on Jesus, like Peter, who walked on the water. The angels. How did Jesus stay afloat? You know how? Because the angels were holding him up. Peter, he got out there, and there were the angels. They got down on their bellies, and he didn't know it. He was walking on the back of those angels. Walking on the back of those angels. I was thinking about Job. We'll share a little bit more, but Job, remember, the devil came to God and said, I can't get to Job because the hedge around him. And I got to thinking, what was the hedge? It was the wings of the Almighty. It was the presence of God. What's the hedge around the believer? What's the wall of fire? God is a consuming fire. What is it that protects us? It's us abiding under the shadow of the Almighty. You're under the shadow of the Almighty. And there's a ring of fire. And there's the wings of the Almighty. The shadow. Remember, it was the shadow of Peter that healed the sick. It wasn't Peter's shadow. It was the shadow of God. Peter was close to the heart of God. Close to the heart of God. He has set his love upon the Lord. And because of that, and you know what? It came in my heart because this morning I was talking about the importance of gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation. And when you lose a praising heart and a thankful heart and a heart of appreciation, and you know what? It's between you and God if you don't appreciate what we do for you. But Kathy's mom, and I'm not being critical, Kathy's mom was coming to our house, and we're doing all, I built a room for her, and because the Lord told me many years ago the day would come when Kathy's mom would live with you. Now, she got hurt, and I had a dream. And the Lord showed me what to do before she got hurt. The night before Kathy's mom got hurt in Thanksgiving 2 years ago, the Lord showed me what to do. And so and then the Lord told me afterwards, he said, now she's coming, even though her son told us that I'm the firstborn son, I'm taking care of my mom. And I said, well, that's right. The Lord said, he ain't going to do it, build a house. Build a room for her. So I did. I just bought the house back. We didn't have money, but by faith I built a room, a 12-foot by 12-foot or something room in there, right, as you go into our foyer. So I built it, and here she comes the day I finished it. Here she comes. Well, not being critical. She's living with us. We're feeding her, transporting her, and I say this in love. I'm not being fault-finding. Not one thank you. Not one thank you. Not, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate what you've done. And you know what? My kids have a heart of appreciation, and so conviction began to come because I'd cook a meal. I cook breakfast almost every morning for everybody, and my kids would say, Dad, thank you for cooking for us. Oh, we appreciate you doing this. Dad, we thank you for taking care of us. And next thing you know, it's because she's around that atmosphere of thanksgiving, of appreciation, and now when I feed her, and now when we do stuff for her, it's coming out of her. Oh, thank you. I'm not doing it for appreciation, but it's evidence. It's evidence of where you're at spiritually. Do you have a thankful heart? Do you have a praising heart? Do you have a worshiping heart? Do you worship him? He's looking for those who will worship in spirit and in truth. Well, to what extent, Pastor Mike? Oh, it makes him so happy when you become like a Mary Magdalene. You don't care what people think. Yes, yes, I love you, Jesus. You're worthy. We're just saying, worthy is the Lamb. Listen, they're not in heaven going, worthy is the Lamb. They're not doing that, man. They're going, you'll be up on your tiptoes when you get to heaven. Worthy, oh God, worthy are you. Because of a heart filled with appreciation. And you know what? I found something shocking about Job. Not one time in the book of Job that he ever said he was thankful. You will not find in the book of Job the word thanks. He wasn't sinning, but he didn't have a thankful heart. Here, God giving him all those kids, give him all that wealth, give him all of that, and you can't find the word thanks. In the book of Job, you can't find the word praise. In the book of Job, you can't find it. You'll find out with most people that don't have the victory, you'll not find the word praise or thanks in their vocabulary. No thankfulness, no worship, no appreciation. I'm not talking to anybody here. You all have a heart so full of appreciation it overwhelms me. I'm talking about people watching. I repent for lying, Lord. But a heart of appreciation, a heart of thankfulness. A heart of worship. And the only time the word worship has appeared, and it says after the devil stole everything he had, he fell to his knees and he said he worshiped. And this is what he said. Listen to this. It's a perverted worship. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. How many know that God didn't take it away from him? A perverted worship. Oh, God, I know you're my enemy. I know you're stripping me, but I love you anyways. You know, my kids say that. Sometimes I've said, I love you anyways. How many know that don't work? You can't say, I love you no matter what. I love you. None of you have ever been guilty of that, have you? I love you. I don't care. I love you. It's like, yeah, you really hurt me, but I love you anyways. No, that ain't. Just be quiet. Pastor Mike, just shut up. Oh, but listen. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. Listen, you will not know the Lord until you set your love upon him. Paul said that I might know him, the power of his resurrection. And fell. It's a shame Christians go through their whole life, even speaking in tongues, but they've never set their love. What do you mean set their love? Well, have you ever wanted something? Really, really want something. You were going to get it, and you didn't know it. You set your love on it, and you found a way to get it. You know what? You get what you set your heart on. You better be careful what you set your heart on. I know, because I'm talking from experience. We better set our heart on Jesus. He says, I will set him on high because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. Now listen, the Bible doesn't say you won't have problems, but when you set your heart upon God, and you know his name, and you call, I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. So God's just really got me on a journey right now. This year I've written 32 books. This year. Why? It's just overwhelmed because the Lord's get ready. Revival's coming and awakening's coming. People have got to know what I've done in your life and what the Word of God says. And not just my life. I've written a lot of books about Smith Wigglesworth. But I wrote a little book called Miracles and Amazing Acts of God's Protection. 60 true stories of divine protection in my life. 60 stories. Some of you have been a part of those stories. You've seen God protect me and keep me in spite of me. But why would God do that, Pastor Mike? Because I've set my heart upon him. Here's one story, and there's 60-some stories. Kathy was dying as a baby from pneumonia. Her mother was a Christian. Her mother, Sandy, gave her heart to Jesus when she was 16 years old. And she's seen her sister die. Kathy's aunt's name was Kathy, and she died from pneumonia. And little Kathy, my wife, she was dying. And Sandy cried out to God, God, do a miracle for my little baby. And God took away the pneumonia. She set her heart upon Jesus. And there's so many stories, of God protecting me, God keeping me. Me and a buddy one time were out fishing, and I jumped on some ice. And the ice broke in Alaska. And that river took me away, that deep stream. And Dale, he reached in and he grabbed the hood of my parka, which must have been floating behind me. And if he'd not done what he did and pulled me back out, and then he got me back to the barracks, it was probably about 15, 20 below that day. And God saved me from being drowned, and I was 19 years old. Over and over, God's, when the gang leader, Gary Kukowski, tried to stab me to death. I was riding between him and Claire Flintrop. That was their names. Big guys. I'm this little guy. And I'm preaching Jesus to him coming out of Chicago. And he grabbed the knife out of the dash, a steel dash of that old, it was like an old Chevy, Bel Air or something. Chevy Impala. And he grabbed Gary, he was a big guy, had already been in federal prison. Grabbed that big old knife. And everything went into, I'm going to do a book called God Still Slows Time Up. You know how when Joshua were fighting and they said, Lord, let the sun stop in the valley of Escalon and the moon. And God stopped time until they won the battle. And I've seen God slow down time for me many times, where just everything went into slow motion. And Gary took that knife and went to stab me right through the gut. And I'm walking with Jesus. See, I've set my heart to serve Jesus. And I saw the knife coming, and I grabbed it with my hand and went down between my legs, sliced all the way down through the springs of that chair. So you know he was putting everything he had into it. He was going to stab me to death, the devil in him. And 3 to 5 times that knife went down between my legs next to my privates. And then a cop car came around and he threw it out the window. And God saved me. 19-year-old kid, I didn't breathe. And when that, you know, when something like that happens, you go, your heart's beating. My heart didn't speed up 1 iota. It's like I'm at a picnic. Just nice and calm and cool and collected. And it was just so supernatural. The next day he took a shotgun. And I still remember going to his house. I drove up to his house. And actually, see, the guy was this bizarre. And actually, it was my fault, really. The guy had a girlfriend, and she needed to be home at a certain time, and he just messed with her. So she begged me, Mike, will you please take me home? My parents are going to have a fit. I got to be home. And I said, come on, get in the car. So I took her home, and I came back to Gary's house. And he had a 12-gauge shotgun lying up against the next to the door. And I don't know if he had duck duck in there, duck pellets, or if he had a deer slug. But as I'm walking up from me to Sandy, he took that 12-gauge shotgun. He aimed it at my belly, and he shot me. Boom! Shot me. Nothing happened. I mean, he shot me, it went off. I can't tell you what happened. I walked up and took the gun out of his hand and set it up against, and he just stood there and he stared at me. He stared at me. Divine protection. Over and over and over and over. And it's not me. It was God that protected me. In the Bering Sea, when I was working on fishing boats, one of the boats got into trouble, the hydraulic system went out, and all the nets got so full of salmon they were going to lose their net and all of the fish, and their season would be done. So my captain pulled up rough seas in the Bering Sea, and that's cold, cold water. You get hypothermia real quick. And I jumped from his boat to the other guy's boat, and we had to pull it all in by hand, me, him, and this other guy, usually just 2 men to a boat. And I got it all in, and I was so tired, and I was so weak, and my legs were like rubber, like spaghetti, you know. And all of a sudden, he pulled up as close as he could, and I went to jump between our boat and his boat, and I fell in between the two boats. And the waves are overwhelming me. I ain't got a life jacket on. And I'm down there in the Bering Sea, and the boats are colliding, and I'm crying, Jesus! Well, the boat I jumped from, they pulled me out, and I jumped again, and I missed again the second time. And now I'm in the brink the second time, you know. It looks like I'm a goner. I should be drowning. I mean, any minute it could be that a shark's going to grab me. Something's going to get me. And the second time they pulled, and the third time I jumped, I made it. That was God's divine protection. God's divine hand upon my life over and over and over. And then I lived with the Yupik Indians, and I got them mad, and I went to push their boat off of a bank, and I was up, and grizzly bears everywhere. And I'm so glad that time they got me really peeved. If I would have had my .357 Magnum pistol, it was in the boat, or if I would have had my .270, I might have popped a couple holes in the boat, you know. About three Yupik Indians, and they took off with and they left me behind. And I'm walking, and all the grizzlies are around me. And then where I was at, those grizzlies will eat you. But God kept the grizzlies away from me. And they came back, and they finally got me. On and on and on. Yupik Indians tried to steam me to death. On and on and on. Just over and over and over. How's that, Pastor Mike? Over 60 stories in that book of divine protection, of what I've experienced. Why? Because he says, he sets his heart upon me. He sets his heart upon, he set his love. He set his love. Set your love on Jesus. You want to really experience God? See, people are trying to get stuff from God. That's the wrong thing to do. Just give him your heart. You know, it's amazing, because when my wife said I do, she had no idea what she was saying I do to. She had no idea. None. I didn't have anything to offer. I was so financially broke that I couldn't even buy the wedding bands. She bought them. No security, no nothing. We're headed off to Rhema. How much money you got? A husband-to-be? Nothing. You ain't got no money. I say, you ain't got no money. We're just getting in my pickup truck, and they've accepted me, and they accepted her. It was supernatural, and we're headed off to Rhema. Have to believe God. And actually what happened, I asked the people at our wedding, just don't give me no presents, because we ain't got nowhere to put them. Just give us money. And I think about $400 or $500 came in, maybe not that much. And we got in my old F250 Ford pickup with a 429 Merc engine that I took out of a car. Even dropped the transmission in it, brother. I mean, it was low gear. I was getting 4 miles to the gallon. Oklahoma was a long way to go. And here we are, and I did have side pipes on it. I had headers on it, so it sounded like a roaring beast, but it had a lot of torque, but it didn't have a lot of speed, you know. Probably max speed was 60 miles an hour, and then I was probably hitting probably close to 3,000 RPM, you know, to get it up to 60 miles an hour. And off to Rhema we go with no money. But she went with me. A woman of faith. Slept in the back underneath the cab I had on the pickup truck. Slept in the pickup. And where are we going to sleep? My new husband, don't know. God will take care of us, even in those days. Where are you going to get money? Don't know. We'll get some jobs. Ended up working for McDonald's together. really happened. We'll close with this. So I'm just working at McDonald's. I'm not a chef or nothing. But everything I did for the Lord, and we worked together. That was the agreement with McDonald's. They broke it one day. I told them when they hired us, I said, listen, we only got one vehicle. We both are going to Bible school. I said, as long as you hire us with this understanding, me and my wife, whenever you call us up, we come together. It's together. I said, the day you call me up and you don't want both of us, that's the day we quit. I told them that. You know, I'm only 22 years old. I need the money. I had $700 more worth of bills than I had money coming in a month working at McDonald's. So one day they called me up. And they said, hey, Mike. I said, yeah. Send your wife in. I said, say again. Send your wife in. I said, well, listen, we'll be back next week to pick up our check. What? I said, I told you that me and my wife work together. And if you called any of us, if we called either one of us up without us together, I said, because we need the money, and that's why you hired us. That's the only reason I agreed to work for you guys. I said, because we needed 2 paychecks. I said, I told you the day you called me, and you wanted just one of us, that's it, we're done. Oh, well, hold on. I said, nope, God bless. I said, I'll be by to pick up the checks, and I hung up the phone, and we quit. You know what God did then? See, I'm not moved by a spirit of fear. God opened the door up and I made twice as much money as the janitor, and that way Kathy could stay home in the apartment. And I started working. But I remember one day I'm at McDonald's, and the chef didn't show up. It's close to noontime. The chef didn't show up, and they said, Mike, the guy came to me, he said, Mike, you're going to have to cook the hamburgers. You're going to have to make the fish sandwiches. You're going to, have you ever done this before? I said, no, never been a chef. I said, but it's okay. He said, what do you mean it'll be okay? I said, listen to me. Because he didn't know something. I was going to pray and ask God to give me a divine download. 22 years old, a divine download. So I got into the kitchen, and I'm still, great big old griddles and everything else, and I looked to heaven, and I said, now, Father, I said, whatever I do it as unto you. Just anoint me now, Lord, to do this. I tell you, the Spirit of God rose up in me, and I just knew what to do. I am not exaggerating. And I grabbed the hamburgers, I grabbed the fries, I grabbed the fish fillets, and I'm running but I'm not panicking. I'm just moving like I've been doing this my whole life, like grease lightning. I'm not exaggerating. I remember flipping, moving, turning, and I'm keeping up with all the orders. And the manager standing there, and his eyes are about this big in his head, and he's watching me. He's watching me. And he must have stood there for 10 minutes, Howard, watching me, because I'm just doing this, man, slapping the lettuce on, slapping the tomato on, slapping the bread together. I'm just doing this, you know, and I get done, and I'm not tired. I'm energized. I'm quickened by the Spirit. I get done doing the hamburger routine, you know. Some people would complain, flipping hamburgers. I didn't get hired for this, making sandwiches. I don't know what I'm doing. No, a grateful heart, a thankful heart, a worshiping heart, a praising heart. I got done. And the guy said to me after the rush hour, I'm not lying, liars go to hell. He said this to me, I've never seen nothing like that in my whole life. I didn't say a word. He said, how long have you been working how many times have you, where'd you learn that? And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, I've never done it before. He looked at me like I was a big liar. He said, what? I said, I've never done this before. Well, how could you do it? And I preached Jesus to him. I said, it's Jesus. He did it. God did it. Just like when we put up this building, Howard can testify. He was here, had no experience putting up a building. Floyd Mackey drove away. He handed me the blueprints. He's the one that we got to steal through. Never put up a bed, never built a doghouse up to that time. He drove away, and I'm standing there with the blueprints in my hand. But I've set my heart upon God. I've set my heart on Jesus. And I looked up to heaven, because there goes. Now, I didn't get upset. I didn't get mad. I did not curse Floyd out. I didn't curse him. Where is he going? Now what am I going to do? Look, I've got 30 people standing here, and I've got a crane, and it's $150 an hour, and I ain't got no money for the crane. What am I going to do? Didn't say none of that stuff. I just simply took the blueprints. I looked up to heaven, and I said, now, Father, you told me to put up this building. So, Lord, I thank you for showing me what to do. And I unrolled it. Schematics. All kinds of numbers, steel beams, purlings, sheetings, and I understood it. And I began to tell the guys, grab that beam, put this, and praise the Lord, we put it up. Give the Lord a hand clap and a shout. Okay, you can stop recording. And it didn't fall yet. It's only been 36 years, or 33 years ago, 1986. How can this be, Pastor Mike? Psalms 91.